A crucial component of the Spanish Civil War Commander, or any Civil War Commander series in the future, are the playing cards. The game can effectively be won or lost because of the cards that you are dealt. Not outright, of course, but an accumulation of factors, of economics, of choices with commanders, things like that, will decide whether you win or lose. That coupled in, of course, with what happens with the calendar. So there's a series of 3 videos, there's 4 videos, this video plus 3 others, that addresses the card system, where I aim to clarify some rules about the cards and how they are played. There's a video about the strategy phase for repair and deployment. That is the first part of the game. The game has three phases: strategy phase, action phase, and the economy phase. The cards mostly come into play during the action phase, but then some of them can come into play during the economy phase. It's not complicated, it's just a matter of when you choose to play them. After the strategy phase, the action phase starts with going to the events manual. So we're on turn number 5 there, and we go to the events manual, play that event for turn 5, whatever the dice say. And after we follow the event, that's when we draw the cards. The example I have here is for turn number 5. Of course, we're already deployed those forces. In most cases, will already be cards there that were not played in the last turn, and you can keep those. Whatever you do not play, you keep those for the next turn. So it's not uncommon for there to be cards for each player already. Usually no more than 1 or 2, sometimes 3. It depends on how much you're willing to accumulate. So whichever player has the initiative will draw 3 cards. And it's the blue player that has the initiative. So he's going to keep his colored card and give the rest to his opponent. Now from the cards that he has, he takes a 1-minute timer to study them and to study the map and the strategy. So he's got a combat action card that he can use for Franco. Logistics, that's all explained in what that is. We explained that in another video. He has a commander card for Franco, who was there before, and he has one for Davila. So after he sort of takes 1 minute to look at his troops, look at the strategy, the cards, the commanders that are there, the commanders that are on the roster, that will give him a chance to decide what to do. If he still hasn't decided when the timer runs out, his opponent will force him to start his blue timer. His time is up and he has to start actions. And the actions are always, he can play all of these cards or one of them. He must play at least one for the land action. And depending on what he has to do on the map, he's going to choose a card with the right number of actions. So here we got a king, which is a 14. The jack is 12 and the queen is 13. All the other cards will say what they are. The 2 means a 2 and so forth. So if our player just wants to do 2 actions, he will play the 2 and pay 2 points in the finance. But that's rare. Usually he wants to do a lot more. Maybe he wants to use Davila's card here as a quality. So he knows that Davila is in play and he's going to want to use the speed quality for him. He's not going to do that right now, but he's going to at least play the card, putting it out of the board, and take an action flag and put it right beside Davila. And that will mark that commander and his army for special quality. Then he's going to play the king, perhaps, for his land card, which is compulsory. That's 14 actions he can have, so he's going to pay 14. 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 14. And now he can move the troops accordingly. And during the action, the timer is still running. He can, at any time, also play this card here, whatever cards he has left, which is a combat card quality for Franco. So if he wants, he can grab one of those flags at any time and put it where Franco is right there and mark that for special quality. The only thing you have to remember is that at least the land card or the sea card must be played. If he had nothing to do on the board and he didn't want to pay the 14 points and he didn't want to really do anything much, he would still have to choose one card, whether it's this one or this one, and the minimum he has to pay is 5 points. So this happens rarely because there's always something that you want to do. But if you don't want to do something and you didn't want to play that instead, and you're going to say, I really don't want to have anything to do right now. I don't want to waste a lot of time. I want to see what my opponent does. Okay, I'm going to play this, get that out, and I'm going to pay for 5 points, and I'm not going to do anything. If I do want to do something, even though I paid 5, I can only do 2 actions because the card only allows me to do 2 actions. So the rule is you either play the land action card or sea action card, which is whatever card you choose to play. And if you don't choose to do anything, you have to choose any card, pay at least 5. Here's another example. There are times, like I said, you already have a lot of cards there and maybe you drew 3 more cards. No matter how many cards you have, the idea is this. You can play all of them or at least one, once again. One of these cards must be used for land action or must be used for sea action. So you take the 9 and you use the 9 for its value, you pay and you move. You can't use anything else on the card. You just use the card for its value. And you can also do that for the 5 for, let's just say you want to choose this for sea action. So you pay the 5 points and you use that for sea action. And then the others you cannot do on that specific round. You cannot do another land card or sea card because you've already done that. Now you're going to use this for a country card because that's what it is. You can use this for the commander if you want. You can use this for a combat action, combat quality, which is the star there. This is another commander card. So you can use all of those for as you conduct your actions. But remember not to take too long because time is running. And, that's what players usually do. They play a couple of cards, 2 or 3 cards, sometimes more. And we're going to get into that on the other videos. And then they put the rest there, and then they stop their timer, and it'll be the opponent's turn. The prerequisite for ending your round is that you have played at least 1 combat land card or 1 combat sea card for your ships, or you played nothing at all. You played 1 card and you paid the 5 points and you go on your way. But that's a bit of a waste of money. Once you do that, your opponents, in this case the reds, can play. At the end of the round, the blue pauses his timer. The red player consults the events, rolls the dice, follows the event that's there, and then now it's his turn to take 3 cards. There's 2 for him and 1 for the opponent. But it's his turn to play, so he takes the 1-minute timer and he examines them. So he's got a quality card, commander card, another commander card, a country card, and another country card. So usually the country cards are, we're going to explain this later, they're more for war or economics and that, so he usually puts that down. He's going to use perhaps the Adolfo's card to promote him. So he takes the commander from the roster and he just promotes him right on the spot there, and he's played that card. As long as there's time in the 1-minute timer, he can do that while the timer is on it. The right timer is out, so now he's forced to place his own red timer and get to the actions. So he can, once again, one of these cards must be either for land action or for sea action. He has quite a lot to do, so he's going to use, no, the country cards are too valuable for money usually, so he's going to use the ace, which is 11. The 7 is 7, the 6 is 6, and so on. The ace is 11. He plays that, pays, and now he can conduct 11 actions. He cannot do sea actions if this is land. If it's the land card that he's played, he can only do land actions. So he's going to go ahead and do that while his timer is running. And after he's done all his actions, he can either stop the timer and pass the turn to his opponent again, or he can go back and see if he wants to play any more cards. But usually these ones are done at the beginning, not at the end. Usually what you would do is if you want to use Modesto, for example, to give him some quality, Modesto is either going to be on the board or on the roster. In this case, he's on the roster. You pick him, you place him over an army, and you put the combat quality there, and that you're going to use that in combat. Usually you do that at the beginning, and then you play all your action points on land. Again, the cards and the events are what commands the entire action phase. And it's after you resolve the battles that are in place after you and your opponent have their rounds that you go on to a new round. So after the combat is resolved, you start a new round within the same turn. There could have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 battles that took place, in whichever player won the last battle, for example, that has the initiative. Let's just say it was the red player here. That will be the player to start the new round. So the red player goes to the events, to the same turn he was on before, if the turn has not ended, and rolls the dice, follows that, and picks his cards. 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. These cards are all blue, so that's for his opponent. He can't do anything with these ones. He gives them to the blue player, and he's left with the cards that were already there to start with, and he can only play those cards. So he wanted to save these for the end for economic points, but he's not going to be able to because he's forced to play at least one of the cards for points. So maybe he'll keep the French card and he'll just play Mexico's card for the 6 points. So once again, nothing here matters. What matters here, if he's doing the land or sea action, is the points. He takes that, pays for it, and conducts his movements and attacks and entrenchments and so forth. After he's conducted all his moves, the blue player goes to the events, picks 3 cards, and 2 are red, and 1 is for him. So he takes all of them, starts the 1-minute timer, studies them, and once again, he will have to choose. So to finalize this explanation, it's on and off, and each player at each round has played an event and he's going to use his cards for to move and to plan attacks and so forth, for actions. And he can use all of the cards or at least 1. If he doesn't want to use any of them, he'll choose 1, pays 5, and does nothing with it. Or, if you wanted to just use a small card, you will pay 4 and do 4 actions. He can use the queen, pay 13 and do 13 actions, the king 14, and so on. We talk about the cards specifically in other videos. He can use 1 card for land. For example, the 4 will be for 4 land actions. Maybe use the 8 for 8 sea actions. And then throughout the round, or after the round is done, during the economy phase, or at any point during this turn, he can use any of these cards. The commander cards are used only in battle, as well as the action cards. So commanders and special quality combat cards are used only for action, but he can keep them and use them at a different turn. And he can use the country cards during the action phase or during the economy phase as well. So any cards that are available. There's only 5 ways you can use the cards, as the rules say. You can use it for land action, naval action. You must use at least 1 of them. You can use country cards, commander cards, or combat cards. And the action phase is always the same. 1 player plays, events, cards, studies it for a minute if he wants, activates his timer, does what he needs to do, then his opponent does his rounds where he plays an event prompted by dice, takes his cards, activates his timer while he conducts the actions. When he's done, he pauses it, and during that single turn, there could be 1 or 2 or 3, usually no more than 3 rounds, where the pieces are moving, they're battling each other, there's results, there is expenditure of economy, there are ships that are put out to sea, there are convoys that are interrupted, perhaps the credit is accessed. All that happens during the action phase. Whoever wins the battles gets, the last battle gets the initiative. You play action rounds and you keep using your timers until there is no more time left. When the time is gone completely, whichever player finishes, that means if he was the second player, the last player in the round, the action turn is over completely. If he was the first player and his timer ran out, then the second player gets to spend whatever time he has left to complete his round, and then that's over. Whichever timer finishes first, that means it'll be the end of that action turn. And remember, the players can go back and forth and they can have as much as 5 rounds. It's unlimited, but usually statistically players don't do more than usually 3 rounds, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, but 3 is the average number of rounds that the timer allows you to for movement and so forth. Those are the card mechanics. 5 ways of using cards. You must play at least one. And the commander and the combat cards are the ones that are played during action. The other cards, country cards, can be played during action, and they can also be played during economy. You always draw 3 cards at the beginning of each round, and you distribute them according to the colors, and use as many as you want. The other videos about cards are about individual cards. I'm going to explain them one by one, and there's going to be 3 separate videos. One video explains combat cards, the other explains commander cards, and the other explains country cards.